Hi everyone, welcome back to i-TUTOR IAS Academy. In today's NCERT series, we will start with the Unit 23, World History, and that is the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. Okay, so what is Reformation and Counter-Reformation? In World History, it's Tamil Nadu NCERT plus 2 chapter. Okay, chapter 23. The Protestant Reformation that is begun around 1570 was a massive 16th century religious, political and cultural upheaval initiated by Martin Luther that splintered Catholic Europe, established Protestantism and challenging papal authority. And the Counter-Reformation that is around 1545 to 1648 was a Catholic Church vigorous response, reviving the church through structural reform and the Council of Trent and Jesuits to combat heresy and to spread Catholicism. And what are the key aspects of Reformation? Origin of this is initiated by Martin Luther in 1517 with his 95 theses in Germany, protesting abuses like the sales of indulgences, nepotism, and simony. And Martin Luther, John Calvin, and other reformers who challenged the Pope's authority. They are the key figures of this Reformation and Counter Reformation. And divide Europe into Protestant and Catholic religion, leading to the creation of new denomination that is Lutheranians, Calvinists, and Anglicans. And what are the consequences? Increased literacy, Bible translation into vernacular language, and major social changes are the consequences of this. And key aspect of counter reformation that is to revive the Catholic Church, address corruption, and oppose the spread of Protestantism. And a critical assembly that reformed church structure, clarified doctrines, and ended the sale of indulgences. And founded by Ignatius of Loyola, and this group focused on education, missionary work, and strengthening the faith. And key actions are established the Inquisition to fight heresy and squared new religion order like Ursulines. Okay, that is the key action. And the religious war is there. The conflict and consequences in this time is religious war, geopolitical shift, and cultural shift also there. Or cultural reformation influenced art, architecture, promoting dramatic emotional style known as Baroque to inspire awe and pity. Okay, so these are the base of this reformation and counter reformation. And further, we will discuss in this unit. The term Reformation refers to a great religious reform movement in Europe during 16th century. There was a big protest against the Christian church in different parts of Europe, and it ultimately resulted in the emergence of Protestant Christian religion. And this great religious movement was not only the evidence of a great religious change but also proclaimed the dawn of new era. And the Reformation started in Germany and later it spread to other countries also. What are the causes of this Reformation? The first one is Christian church under the Pope was originally commanded respect among the people, but in the Middle Ages it had become a big feudal institutions and possessed so much of lands and wealth. And the Pope enjoyed great political influences and wealth. The Pope enjoyed great political influence and influence into the political affairs. And as a result, they began to neglect their spiritual duties, and the Pope and the clergy began to lead luxurious lives. And the Pope, like Alexander, Julius, and Leo X, who lived in the 15th, 16th centuries, with their activities undermined the respect and the prestige of the church. So, that is the first cause of this Reformation. Second is the Renaissance movement created a spirit of inquiry among the masses, and they began to read the Bible and realize that the activities of the church and the clergy were not according to the perspective of the Holy Book. And in the years preceding the Reformation, and many writers condemned luxurious and superstitious practices prevalent in the church. And John Wycliffe from England criticized the Pope for his authority and misdeed. and he translated Bible into English, and he considered the morning star of the Reformation, and Erasmus attacked the superstitions followed by the clergy in his book In Praise of Holy, and it was published in 1509. And John Huss, a Bohemian, struggled for reforming the church, and but he was condemned for his writing against the church and burned to death. And this early effort to reform the church sowed the seed for Reformation of the 16th century. And third causes is emergence of nation state in Europe eroded the political influence enjoyed by the church during the Middle Age, and the Pope and the Emperor lost their influence and power, and the people began to respect their king and the nation, and therefore the concept of universal church slowly gave way to national churches. Okay, so these are the three causes of this Reformation. And first one is Martin Luther. So this is a picture of Martin Luther. Who is he? The Reformation started in Germany and it was led by Martin Luther. And Martin Luther was born in Eisleben on November 10, 1483. And Luther was educated at the University of Erfurt. He became a monk in 1508, and in November 1510 he visited Rome, and he was shocked to see the worldly life led by the Roman clergy. And in 1512 he received his doctorate in theology from Wittenberg University, and he began his career as a professor of theology in the same university. Thereafter, Luther began a systematic campaign for removal of evils of the church. And in 1517, Pope Leo X sent John Cecil to Germany to sell indulgences for the purpose of raising money to renovate the St. Peter's Church at Rome. And an indulgence was originally mean a promise given to a sinner for the remission of punishment if he repented and confessed his sins. And but Pope Leo X used the sale of indulgence to raise money. Therefore Luther opposed the practice of the sale of indulgences. When John Tetzel visited Wittenberg, and Luther listed the abuse of indulgence in his 95 thesis and nailed it to the doors of the church. And Pope Leo X, so this is Pope Leo X picture, and this is John Tissel. Okay, got alarmed and excommunicated Luther in January 1521, and Luther burned this order in public. And this is Charles V. Then the Pope appealed to Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, to punish Luther for his writing against the church. And but Luther had the support of the German princes. However, he appeared before Emperor Charles V at the Diet of Women in April 1521. Okay, and Luther was proclaimed guilty, but there before his imprisonment, he was escorted by his friend and kept at Wartburg Castle, and there he translated New Testament from original Greek into German language. He published his most popular book, that is Small Catechism, in 1529. Luther led a life of seclusion till his death in 1546. Okay, so that is about Martin Luther's life. And when the rural people of Germany joined this religious protest, it became the Peasants' War of 1524 and 1525. The revolt of peasants was suppressed with an iron hand, and many peasants were massacred. And in the Diet of Space, which met in 1526, the religious question was raised again by the German princes, and the Diet gave permission to the princes to choose their own religion. But Emperor Charles V revoked this decision in 1529. Therefore, the German princes drew up a Protestant, and they came to be known as Protestants. It was only in the Peace of Augsburg in 1555 and formal approval was given by the emperor to the princes either to remain Catholic or Lutheran, and it gave recognition only to Lutheran sect and not the Zwinglianism or Calvinism. And next is Ulrich Zwingli, that is around 1484 to 1531. And Ulrich Zwingli paved the way for the Reformation in Switzerland. He was contemporary of Martin Luther and born in a rich family in Switzerland. He became a priest in the Zurich canton in 1502, and he attacked abuse of church such as the sale of indulgences, and he spoke openly that the clergy should strictly follow the principles of the Bible. And Samson was sent to Zurich by the Pope sell the indulgences. It was opposed by Zwingli. Thereafter, his preaching was directed against the leadership of the Pope and the excessive veneration of saint, the celibacy of the priesthood, and fasting. So, this is Ulrich Zwingli. Okay, Ulrich Zwingli is this photo. And his stand against the celibacy was opposed by the Bishop of Constance. So the city council voted in favor of Zwingli and against the bishop, and the Zurich adopted the Reformation. And in 1523, Pope sent an order excommunication of Zwingli, but the Zurich canton announced its separation from the church. So five other cantons declared a war against Zurich, in which Zwingli was killed in 1531. Finally, an agreement was reached between the cantons by which each canton was given freedom to choose their religious sect. So, next is John Calvin. John Calvin, 1509 to 1564. So this is the picture of John Calvin. This is Henry. The French Protestant reformer John Calvin was born in France, and he studied humanities and law at the University of Paris, and he obtained in 1532 Doctor of Law, and his first published work was contemporary commentary of Roman philosopher Seneca's De Clementia, and in 1536 he settled in Geneva. His main teaching are that the Bible alone is a final authority for matters of faith, and that salvation is attained purely through grace. And he subscribed to the doctrine of the absolute for knowledge and the determining power of God. And Calvin published his religious doctrine as a book called The Institute of Christian Religion, and his religious sect was known as Calvinism. He became the head of the church in Geneva, and he established several schools for the spread of education, and he was also the founder of University of Geneva, and Calvinism had spread to many parts of Europe. Okay, so that is about John Calvin. And the Reformation in England. King Henry of England initially opposed Martin Luther and supported the Pope, and he was called the defender of faith. So this is Edward VI by Pope Leo X, and the relationship with the Pope broken down when the Pope refused to permit King Henry to marry Anne Boleyn after divorcing his queen, and he asked the Parliament to pass an Act of Supremacy in 1534, by which the king was made the head of the Church of England, and this new church, independent of the authority of Pope, was called the Anglican Church. And Henry VIII did not introduce any change in the Catholic doctrine, but the Anglican Church became really Protestant in the reign of Edward VI, and the service books were translated into English. And what is counter reformation? So this is reformation in England, and the church also we discussed about Martin Luther, and now we will discuss the counter reformation. The success of the Reformation movement created a great awe and fear in Roman Catholic Church before things went out of control. So it took drastic measure to check the spread of the Protestant religion and also to carry out reform within itself. And this process was known as counter reformation. And Ignatius Loyola this is Ignatius Loyola. Okay, Spanish soldier and lost his legs in war, and thereafter he decided to contribute his might to the cause of Roman Catholic Church. So Loyola found the Society of Jesus in 1534, and it was recognized by the Pope. And the aim of his society was to reform and restore the glory of the Catholic Church. And members of the society were known as Jesuits, and they worked hard to earn good name for the Catholic Church through their dedicated service, and they established school and college in several parts of the world, and they achieved a remarkable success in their missionary activities, and they remained faithful to the Pope and the Catholic religion. And the Council of Trent introduced several reforms in the Catholic Church. The most glaring abuse of the clergy were removed, and celibacy was strictly enforced for them, and the sale of offices was stopped, and the practice of the sale of indulgence was abolished. It also stressed the clergy other more strictly to their duties, and the Pope was recognized as the supreme authority in the matters of the religion. An index consisting of list of dangerous and heretical books was issued by the church, and Catholics were prohibited from reading these books. Similarly, the medieval practice of ecclesiastical court of inquisition was revived, and torture was used to extract confession, and severe punishments such as burning to death were employed against the enemies of the church. And the success of the counter reformation can be understood from the fact that the rapid spread of Protestantism was halted, and southern Germany, France, Poland, some of the Swiss cantons, and the Savoy were brought back to the Catholic faith. And at the same time, the Protestantism was driven out of Italy and Spain, and the Rome Catholic Church is still one of the greatest religious organization in the world. And here is one chart: important historical events of Reformation. And 1492, that is Columbus claims Bahama Island and Cuba for Spain, and Martin Luther writes the 95 Thesis, that is on 1517. Luther translates the Bible into German, that is on 1522, and Peace and Uprising in Germany 1525. And 1599, Anglican Church established in England with the king or queen as its head. Okay, so this is important historical events of Reformation time. And effects of Reformation. What are the effects? First one is the Reformation led to two major divisions in Christianity, Catholics and Protestant. And this division had resulted in religious persecution and religious wars in Germany and in other parts of Europe. And people were encouraged to read the Bible and ponder on religion, and the freedom given by the Protestant to interpret the Bible led to free thinking. It encouraged the development of art, literature, and science, and the democratic church system paved the way for the growth of democracy and nationalism, and the nations began to evolve their own churches, and the place of Pope was taken by the nationalistic churches, and the rapid progress of the Protestant religion and the Counter Reformation ultimately resulted in the purification of the church. Both Catholics and Protestant began to adopt high moral standards after the Reformation, and the Catholics purified their church establishment, and this in turn improved the values in the society. Okay, so that is all about this unit. And this is all about Reformation and Counter Reformation. In between any doubts and more NCRT series, you just do like, share, and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much.